Hello and welcome to today's episode of Level Up. I am your host, Jaime Gill, and as you can see, I have my co host, Miss Stephanie Reynolds, but she's not the co host today. She is our very, very, very special guest. I know you're like, what are y'all doing over there at Level Up? Well, with this podcast, we wanted to start with ourselves so that way you could see all that 220 has to offer and to show you just how easy it is to be on our show. So, if you are interested in being a featured guest on the Level Up podcast, then go ahead, leave us a comment or send us an email. We'll have all of our information at the end of the show. But today, I am absolutely honored to be able to introduce to some and represent to others one of my very, very dearest friends, Miss Stephanie Reynolds. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
How you doing today, lady in red?
It's a lot less pressure on this side, I'll tell you
I
that
know.
much. I'm
It is true.
enjoying
Well,
just having
that's
to
what you
just
think.
sit
You don't know
back
what I
and
have to
relax.
ask you yet. Well, for those of you who do not know, Stephanie Reynolds is the editor in chief of 220 Publishing. And so today's episode is so perfectly entitled Unedited with the editor in chief, Miss Stephanie Reynolds. Stephanie is a phenomenal person, and I'm not saying that because she's my friend. I've known her over 20 years,
Hmm.
and she is an entrepreneur. She is a mom, she is a wife, she is a woman of God, she is an editor in chief. But most importantly, Stephanie is light, she is compassion, and she is love, not just personally but also professionally. Stephanie has come into the 220 family and has added the necessary ingredient in leadership that is going to allow this publishing company to be something that you'll never forget. Second to none, indeed. And so today we wanted to bring Stephanie before all of you so that way we could pick the brain of the editor in chief to find out what makes publishing so special. So, Stephanie, how you feeling today, girl?
Feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You're looking good. Stephanie, I want to first and foremost start off by asking you a question that we often get asked in seminars, we get asked in certain classrooms and educational environments. Who is Stephanie Reynolds?
It doesn't matter how many times you get asked that question, it never gets easier. I think one of the reasons is because we're constantly evolving. And
Yes,
so it
miss.
feels like the answer can change based off of where you are in that particular season. Um, You mentioned a couple of things that I am. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an entrepreneur, but I think at my core, I'm a servant. And um in any way that I can, I want to be able to serve God, serve people, um in the most authentic and purposeful way that I can.
What I
Yeah.
think makes you so special, Stephanie, that a lot of people don't know about you. Stephanie is a master administrator. She has the ability to organize and to take care of business. You are the founder of Dreamcatcher Solutions. I love
Mhm.
that, right? And when I think of you, I really do think of being a dream catcher. You're able to take someone's dream, catch it, and help them to effectively take it to the next level and run with the vision that God gave them. Tell me more about this term dream catcher and what that means to you, because you also have a book called Dream Catcher. And tell me how that came into your spirit and how you use that to do what you feel like you've been placed on this earth to do.
So when I think of a dream catcher, right, I think of this. Well, we all know we've seen it, the little thing that hangs. But ultimately, it's I'm a catcher of dreams in a very literal sense. So, um, God has given me uh, the purpose and the ability and the responsibility and the opportunity and all of those things to be able to take a person's dream and help them articulate that in a very tangible way. And so, whether it's a business, whether it's your book, whether it's you as a person, being able to ultimately bring things to purpose. Like, that's the core of who I am, identity and purpose. Who are you and why are you here? And ultimately, that's what the dream is made up of, you getting to who you are and then where you're supposed to be.
And what I think is so special about that is because oftentimes people are always looking for the front, right?
Hmm.
And for many years, you played the role of the background.
Hmm.
And most people see the person in the front, but they don't recognize that without the people in the background or the very efficient person in the background, they could never get to that stage. They could never get to that microphone. So tell me, because I've watched you evolve, like you were definitely the person in the background. And I kept saying, Stephanie, you sure you're supposed to be back here? And that was just your calling and your
Hmm.
assignment. But now to see how God has moved in your life, that you play both roles. You're
Hmm.
the person in the background, but now God has called you to the forefront. So if you could talk about each of those positions, about being a person in the background and what does it take to be there effectively and happily, right? And
Hmm.
not feeling like you're being punished, and then making that transition to also being a person in the foreground.
I think one prepared me for the other for sure. Being in the back and learning things from the foundation helped me to better understand how to be effective on the other side of that. But it's something I had to learn how to value, if I'm being completely honest, right? Because oftentimes it's minimized, and even myself. I was just talking to somebody the other day about how God has really been dealing with me about being grateful, and just the more that I'm really understanding who he's made me to be and walking in the truth of my identity and clarity and my purpose, there is a gratefulness for all of the things that I used to minimize or used to just be like, okay, it's just, yeah, you don't realize the magnitude that you're operating in. And so I think being behind the scenes, when you look at any company, right, administration is the backbone.
Yes.
There is, the administrator is the one who has all the answers, knows where everything is. The
That's
administrator and the janitor, right?
that's
They
right.
have the most
I got the
keys.
keys.
They have the keys to everything. And it's something to that, being able to help somebody else build. Like, there's honor in that, there's value in that. That's something that is, there would be no successful company, successful ministry, successful church, whatever it is that you're building, without having that administrative part, that behind the scenes, the one who's there answering the questions and, making some of the decisions and giving you what you need to be successful. And so I really had to learn how to value that, and I really do value it now. Understand the gift. Even in the Bible, administration is a gift of the Spirit.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's something that God gave us, and it's something that's important, it's something that's necessary. And so I think for anybody who feels like they're in the background, one, understand that it is a place of honor. Like, for people to entrust me, I am a bearer of secrets. I am a bearer of vision. And people, are able to share their deepest dreams with me and trust me with that. Like, there's something about, you don't share your dreams and your aspirations with just anyone, and people feel safe saying, okay, Stephanie, I can give you this and I trust you with it. And so I think that, that was something that I really, I'm really grateful for God starting me there. And then on the other side of it, um, this side to me is a little scarier for sure. um, there is I think, a different weight being in front because there's a face to it. When I was in the back, it
Can't
didn't
hide.
really, yeah, I could hide. And so now being in the forefront a little bit more, it comes with its challenges, but I believe God prepared me for it. And that's the part, is that when you're in purpose, one step prepares you for the next. And so as I have evolved and as I have grown and gotten clearer, and God has shifted and prepared and cultivated and all of those things, I realize that for every season that I am, He's given me everything that I need for it.
I love that. And when she speaks about being a secret keeper, she has quite a few of mine, and
Mhm.
she'll never tell.
I'll never tell.
She'll never tell. There's a word that I was actually going to bring up that you said, and I want to talk about it a little bit, because I think that it's important, not just for where you've been, where you are, and where you're going, but I think it's important for our listening audience as we're helping them to evolve and to level up. Let's talk about the word trust.
Hmm.
And when you are in a place or position of life, whatever that is, whether that is a stay at home mom, whether that's a CEO, whether that's an administrator or a podcast host
Hmm.
or an author of the book, let's talk about the gifts that person has and how important it is for God to trust us with those gifts. Like that word trust is so very powerful. So let's talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I think that that is it's a powerful concept, right? Because again, so often we can take for granted the gifts that God has given us. We can put them into these different compartments where some are big and some are small and some get more notoriety than others. But ultimately, anything that God has entrusted you with, there is a level of trust that needs to come with that. He is entrusting it to you. He is saying, you can handle this, whatever this is, and I can trust that you're not going to just throw it away, but you're going to maximize it and you're going to do whatever it is that I am calling for you to do with it. And so when you begin to look at it that way, it's like, man, God, you trusted me with this. You trusted me with Level Up. You trusted me with 220. You trusted me with people's books. And you've trusted me with my children, with my husband, all of these things you are saying. And so when you look at it that way, it's like, God, I don't want to mishandle what you've entrusted to me. I don't want to disappoint you because you didn't have to give it to me. You could have said no. It's like when the devil came and with Job, and the devil had come to the Lord, and he was talking about Job, and God was like, have you considered Job?
yeah,
Like, God was the one who pointed him out and said, this is somebody who is doing, have you considered him? And I think, when we begin to realize the intentionality of God to give us what He gave us, how He gave it to us, to do with it what He's called for us to do with it, you recognize all of the trust and the value that goes into it. The problem is, too often we minimize it and devalue it, and we think that it's not good enough or that we're not good enough. But He doesn't make mistakes. So if He gave it to you, you are enough for it.
period.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
You uh set up perfectly for where I wanted to go next.
Mhm.
And we talk about minimizing the things that we have to give. I had somebody ask me, is the Level Up podcast a religious or a Christian show? And I said, not not necessarily, right? But the podcast hosts are.
Right.
And
Right.
so God goes with us everywhere we go.
Right.
So if you're listening to the Level Up podcast, you're going to get some God.
Right. It's true.
Because we would not be in the positions that
Mhm.
we are in had
Yeah.
it not been for God and for the founder, Glenn Murray, trusting us
Mhm.
with his vision and the
Yeah.
work and sacrifice that he had done. And so you can get some sprinkles of God in here. Yes, absolutely. But this is
Yeah.
a personal and professional development show
Mhm.
really want you, not just authors, but anyone that happens to listen, to really get what you need to be able to level up. And with that, we want to go into maximizing.
Mm-hmm.
You are the author of the book Maximizing Your Monday. And I absolutely love that title. I love the book, but I love the title of the book because it is almost like, all right, let's start the week off right. So
Mm-hmm.
why don't you tell our listening audience a little bit about what does it mean to maximize your money?
So to maximize your Monday is to make the best of it, right? A lot of times we go into Monday with this idea that it's like, oh,
Here we
back
go.
to whatever it is you're going back to. So it's back to work, back to school, back to the mundane everyday life that Monday represents. And progress and leveling up is all in perspective, right? And so if we begin to shift our perspective, it shifts the way that we approach every moment in our life. And when we're talking about leveling up is one level at a time, right? If you've ever played a video game, you don't jump from level 1 to level 10. You go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. And all of that comes with the level of, or with a certain degree of intentionality and purposefulness. And so maximizing your Monday is about shifting your mindset because everything happens in our mind. Is how we think about things, and how we think about things is how we behave, is how we act, is how we begin to make our choices, and ultimately how we craft our life. And so instead of looking at Monday as this humdrum back to the mundane, is okay, this is another week for me to get closer to purpose, to be productive, to do whatever it is I didn't do last week. Like, this is a place for progress, not a place for me getting, disappointed because I'm back to life as usual. And it's shifting even that life as usual thing, right? Because we go into it like, what is life as usual? And if you don't like it, let's change it. Like, what? Let's make it unusual.
Yeah.
Let's make
Yeah,
it
right.
something different. And
Yeah.
so maximizing your Monday is really about living our very best life, one decision, one choice, one Monday at a time.
I love that. As an editor, you have the ability and the skill to be able to see the necessary and the unnecessary. You are also the creator and host of the Coded Conference, which I love. Um, you have an ability, Stephanie, to be able to see. You just have an eye for detail and impart upon us, oh masterful one, right? Oh masterful one. We made a joke last episode about how I'm the run-on queen, how I'm gonna make a list out of everything. Comma, 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 semicolon, comma. And Stephanie will come in like delete, period.
Right.
Right? And we joke about that in writing, but we also need to be able to have that skill in our own lives. And so having you as an editor for my book has also helping me to sharpen my eye for my life of seeing the unnecessary, the
Hmm.
things I'm dragging out, the things I'm being dramatic about, the things that I'm complaining about. What would you give to someone listening who doesn't see how nothing can be maximized? How can they see this little bit turned into something great, or this, what they may deem as an insignificant skill or dream, to make it something bigger? So tell us, with an editor's eye, the ability to be able to see things differently.
Hmm. That is that's one of those questions that you're like, okay, let me think about that, right? Because I don't want to just say something that sounds good. I want to make sure that it is actually going to help and resonate, right? Um I
And I
think
brought up the coded conference
mhm.
because you speak and you teach about us all being coded differently.
Mhm.
So what I may not be able to see, right?
Mhm.
I may need an editor.
Yeah.
I will always need an editor as an author, always. Some people will grow to the space where they will never need an editor. But I also say that about my life. I will always need accountability partners and mentors and teachers because I cannot do this thing alone. And none of us really can, right?
Right.
But just to, in those spaces in time where we do have to make some decisions and see
Mhm.
something differently, how do you kind of I'll ask the question differently. How do you use your skills as an editor to be able to make the necessary changes in your life to keep the necessary and get rid of the unnecessary? I'll ask it that
And so just real quick to go back to one thing that you said, to answer your initial question,
way.
I do think that when you can't see it for yourself, one of the best things you can do is ask somebody, right? Because as an editor, when one of the biggest things that I always tell authors is you've read it so many times, so you're going to read what you know you meant. So you're going to miss things because it's coming from you. And so you read it the way that you are writing it in your mind, not necessarily the way that it's coming off on paper. And so for an editor, I can come in and I'm going to see your blind spots because it's not coming directly from me. And I think it's the same thing when you're unable to see for yourself, in yourself, those places that maybe you need to shift or pivot or maximize, to have somebody that you can go to who's able to see the blind spot, who's not seeing it day after day. It's almost like when you're trying to lose weight and you look in the mirror, you can't see it, but then somebody who hasn't seen you for a month, they see you and they're like, oh my goodness, you look great,
Yes,
right?
yes,
We
yes.
always need those extra set of eyes. That's why we weren't created to do life by ourselves. So I think that's always important to have that. But in terms of editing life, um, I think it's again taking it little steps at a time, right? Not trying to finish the puzzle all at once, but just moment by moment, day by day. That's why it says maximize your Monday, not maximize your month,
Yes.
maximize your week, right?
Yes.
Just take it one day. Let's just get through the
Our
first day,
Monday.
boo. Let's get through Monday. And I think that's some of it, is that a lot of times we're looking at how do we get to the finish line as opposed to how do I just take the next step. And so if we just start to take it down a little bit to how do I change this moment? How do I make an action step for today? And then if the more you keep making an action step moment by moment, day by day, you'll look up and you'll be at the goal. I think the other thing too is when I'm editing, I'm editing for your book, right? I'm not comparing it to someone else's book because every book has its own voice. So
That's
I'm not going to edit your book, Jamie, the same way that I would edit Justin's book or the same way that I would edit a construction worker's book, right? Because every voice is different. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls we have is that we're paying attention to everybody else and we're
yes.
comparing our lives to everybody else. And sometimes the reason why you can't see what's inside of you is because you're comparing it based off of what everyone else is doing. And we're all different. We all
Yes.
have different goalposts. We all have different gifts. We all have different dreams. We all have different purposes. And so you have to kind of stay focused on you and what you're supposed to be doing, and that helps to make it a little easier when you're not trying to run everybody else's race.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
We talked about last week about loving your story.
Mhm.
What do you love about your story?
I love that my story is still being written. I love that my story is complex and it's layered, and it is something that a lot of people can read for a lot of different reasons and find healing in a lot of different ways, right? I love that my story is filled with places that I can look back and see how much that I've grown, see what I've learned, see where God has brought me from, that there's growth, that I'm not, my chapter 6 doesn't look like my chapter 1. And I love that. I love the diversity and the growth and the development that my story has.
I'm going to ask you a question, so brace
Hmm.
yourself, okay?
Okay.
You and I have something in common
Hmm.
that's not necessarily a happy part.
Hmm.
Tell me how losing your dad
Hmm.
shifted you as a girl, as a daddy's girl.
Hmm.
You're a daddy and a mama's girl. You're very much both. You're very much
Yeah.
both.
I'm the only girl, so I'm
So
kind of
right, yeah,
I'm everybody's
you're
girl.
everybody's girl. But how that impacted your story, and the reason that I bring this up very specifically is because sometimes, um, you're always, you present very well all the time, right? You're just that girl. I tell my friends all the time that I have one of the most swaggiest friends. Stephanie is always swaggy, right? Look at her. Look how cute she is, right? She can take something and just take it to the next level. But there are parts of our life, the losses, the sad
Hmm.
times, that are very much a part of our core and our everyday. So tell me how losing your dad changed you, and yeah, how has losing your
Yeah, losing my dad was, it was tough. And I have felt it in different ways at different points in my life. Initially, it was like when I lost my dad, I lost what felt like my anchor. Like my dad was the one that, I would go to for advice. I was never the girl who really, like sat in daddy's lap and snuggled up with him. Our relationship was like, Dad, I'm going through this. And he would help me think through it. And he was the one who taught me how to really think through things and be um thorough in how I approached my decisions. Like he taught me how to be, like, a lot of what you see now came from my father's impartation. And so when he left, I felt like, or when he passed away, I felt like my covering, like my protection, my dad, was gone. And my mother and I are extremely close, right? But it was just, I don't know, when my dad left, it just felt like that that rock
Mhm.
was gone. Um then when I got married, I felt it because he didn't walk me down the aisle. My brother walked me down the aisle. When I had my children, when I had my daughter, I felt it because he wasn't there. When I had my son, I felt it. My grandmother, his mother passed away this past October, and so I felt it again because she was kind of that last connection to him as his mother. So now it just kind of feels like he is he's a memory, if that makes sense. When she left, it was like the last tangible parts of him, I feel like, kind of left with her. Because anyone knows, when you lose a child, that grieving process is very different. So my grandmother kept him alive. Like, she would give my children money and say, "This is from your papa," right? Like, she was just very intentional about keeping him here in that way. And so when she left, that was kind of like the last tangible part. So it has been difficult. There have been times where I have really mourned him, and grief is a very complex thing. But at the same time, my dad gave me a very strong relationship with God. So even though I miss him and I feel his presence, not I feel the absence of his presence, I don't feel broken by it. And I don't feel like it is a I don't feel like it's a hindrance for me. I just feel like, my dad is not here and I miss him. Yeah.
Mhm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why it's good to have good friends that are kindred spirits. Stephanie has literally, this is not rehearsed, just so you know. She has set up everything that I was getting ready to ask her, she set up for the next. The reason I asked her about her father, because I know everybody's like, that was left field. Why'd you?
Mhm.
Because that's what I know Stephanie to her mom. When I think about her mom, because I have the pleasure of knowing her,
Mhm.
um, like that's the ministry side of Stephanie, but Stephanie's ability to think, to analyze, and to come to a uh I'm looking for the word, like your ability to have, you make great decisions, right? You make great decisions and you help other people, and that's what I know you to get from your father. That
Mhm.
ability to look at a situation and to analyze, and not to say that mama Becky doesn't have that,
Right.
because she does, but that's what I know you to have. So when I think about you as a holistic person, that's what I get from your father. And so that part of him didn't leave with his grandmother. He's still very much here. And you're passing that on as you help other people to learn to love their stories and to get through their stories. Speaking of being an editor in chief, tell us why you think it's important that people continue to write and to tell their stories.
It broke up just a little bit, Jay. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What Well, it's okay. Why do you think it's important for people to continue to write books and to tell their stories, whether it's their own personal bios or if it's what was our running joke before this, a sci-fi book?
Right. Right.
Why do you think it's important to for people to continue to write?
Um, well, for a couple of reasons. One, I think writing is one of the most cathartic things you can do, right? It's something about when you put things in black and white that gives it a different life. It makes it, I don't know, it makes it feel more concrete and real. And it's like that pen, those words are an extension of you in a very real way. And so I think even if you're not writing to publish a book, writing just to get it out, right? Because in our minds, we have a million, thousand, gazillion, billion thoughts and things that have happened to us. And just to be able to write it down, to keep track of for yourself, you know? So I think that writing is just a cathartic thing, place of therapy and all of those things. But in terms of publishing your book, I think stories are important because people are able to see themselves in them. And stories are able to be a mirror for the reader in a lot of different ways. It's able to be an escape. It's able to be a place of relaxation. It's able to evoke so many different emotions and feelings, and it's almost like music, right? It's something
Yes.
about just when you have a good song that just takes you to a place, or you remember something, like a song can come on from the 90s and it takes me right back to that place, where I was when I heard it. And that's what books do. Stories are able to take you to a place. And then they're able to give you a place of reflection. It's able to give you a place like you're able to find um that you can overcome. You weren't the only person who went through it. You're not by yourself. Stories really are alive. Words are alive. They can bring life, they can bring death, they build worlds. And so when you're reading people's story, all of those things are going on. They're bringing life to places, they're getting rid of some places, they're showing you what life could be. And so I just think that I mean, they were so important that he gave us a storybook. Like, that's
Yes.
what the Bible is. He gave
Yes.
us a
Yes.
book full of stories to help guide us. And so there's significance in that. And I believe that is something that if it's in your heart to do, you need to do it.
Tell me what makes, from your perspective, what makes 220 Publishing special? You have the ability, you came in to 220 at an entry level position, and now you owner,
I
right?
know.
You literally have worked your
Crazy.
way up, right? That's
Yeah.
still like dream
Mm.
come true. So tell me what makes 220 Publishing special and different from other publishing companies.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's Glenn. That was who, I first spoke to. Well, and I'll say you too, Jamie, because you two were the common thread in me becoming a part of 220. You sent me to 220 when I was a stay-at-home mom. I had just had my daughter and I was looking for some extra cash to make from home. And that was back before like remote jobs and all of that was the thing. And so, and then when I spoke with Glenn, and what I love about Glenn is that there is something about the way that he leads that makes you feel like you can do it. And
The
it's
trust.
interesting. Yeah, I know. But he is not like a micromanager by any means. I had never even met. I think I've only met Glenn, seen him in person once over the course of this decade, right?
Yeah.
It's a decade plus, actually, I think. But it's just something about him that just allows you to do what you do and you want to do it well because he trusts you so much with it. And that's that word again, trust.
Trust. Yeah.
I think the other part of it that makes 220 special is that it gives everybody a shot. I think one of the scariest things about writing is you wonder, and I hear it all the time when authors, we do our initial consultation, and there's always this I never thought I'd be able to do it, or I'm finally doing it, or I wasn't sure if you guys were going to accept it. There's always this kind of hesitation and trepidation about whether or not their book or them as an author is good enough. And 220, it's like, yeah, you're good enough. And where you're not good, we're going to help make you good.
Hmm.
And there is very much this family kind of environment where I don't know you, but I know you.
That's
I
right.
wouldn't know you if you walked past me in the store, but on this email and with this book, we are like, we hang real tough. And I think that's what makes 220 special is that the people on the team see the potential. They see what it could be. And I think that we just have a natural love for people and their stories, and we value it. And for me as an author, I want to be someplace where I am valued, where my story is valued, where my perspective is valued. And here at 220, we value people and we value the fact that you chose us cuz it's a two-way relationship. This is not just us picking you. You are choosing to trust us with your your book, your story, your heart in a very intimate way. And so I think that is shown in how we interact with our authors.
I love that. I often tell people that choosing a publisher is like getting married.
Mhm.
And you, just because they present the ring, you don't have to say yes.
Right?
Like
Mhm.
you have a choice in it. And I think that you summed it up so perfectly, because it really is a two-way street. And when I think about the authors that we've worked with over the years, and even our own individual processes
Mhm.
within 220, that it was this family community, you
Mhm.
know. And it was, when you said it, it made me laugh. Like, there are people that I've worked on my books I have never met.
Yes.
But
Yep.
to this day, I'm like, I love them so much. I want to send them
Mhm.
a Christmas card, because
Yep.
they help my dream come true.
Yeah.
And you do spend so much time communicating
Mhm.
through email, through Zoom calls, through, phone conversations and text messages. People have asked me, and I'll ask you this question: what is the difference between choosing a publisher and self-publishing? Because there are times where people think that I could just do this myself. I don't need anybody. Let's cut out the middleman.
Right.
What are the maybe the pros and cons, or what are the differences in publishing, choosing a publisher versus self-publishing?
Think that the difference first is with the individual, right? What your capacity, your capability, and your time is able to allow you to do. I think it starts there. Like, what can you do, and what do you have the time to do? So we get, and then so we it runs the gamut for us. We have some people who have all of the ability, but they just don't have the time, and so you pick a publisher because you need somebody to do the work. Then you have some people who they just don't know anything. I just wrote the book. Now what do I do with it? And
Here,
so we're able to come right here.
here's my baby.
This
Raise
is
it.
it. This is it.
Take care of it.
Right. And so it's like, okay, because you need someone to walk you through the process. The great thing about 220 is that we're hybrid. So with the self-publishing, a lot of times people like to self-publish because it is a financial thing. So you don't have to pay upfront, you get your royalties right away. You don't have to pay anybody, extra to do some of the end-to-end work. For us, because we are private label and we are a hybrid publishing company, you get your royalties right away, right? You're paying for somebody to do it, but unlike a traditional publisher, you don't have to pay us back when you start making your royalties. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds. You start getting your royalties right off the bat. And you get someone to partner with you. You get the project manager who's going to be there to answer the questions and, walk you through what to price it at and what's a comparable price for your book size and what's the right page count and should I do, for instance, yesterday we're working on a book and the author wanted a particular font. And when we sent it to the designer, the designer was like, I read this book. It's too emotional for this font. Like it needs to be this font because this font is for things that are a little bit more lighthearted. But just having that type of feedback and those partners that help you make the right decision so that you can present your very best version of your story. And so we kind of give you the best of both worlds. So you get the help and you get to make the money. Because let's be honest,
That's right.
you know, we would like to make some money from. Otherwise, it would just, we would just hand it out on the street.
That's right.
So you're able to start making your royalties right away. So I think that's what makes 220 a little different is that you get the best of both.
Do you edit your own books?
Um I do to a certain degree because like I said before, everybody has a blind spot, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's your work, it's just like again, it's like
Your
everything else. It's
kid's
like
the
with your
cutest kid in the
kid.
class, right?
Yes, and then somebody else looks and it's like, but you don't see or a perfect example is with speech, right? We talk
Yes,
because I'm an assistant principal and a daycare director, and so um we have a lot of children who come in and they have speech problems and their mom is like, well, I understand him. Well, yeah, because it's your kid, so you understand him because you know him,
that's right.
but I don't know what he's saying, ma'am, and I
That's
need
right.
to know what he's saying. So we need to get somebody to help bridge that gap
Speak the
between.
house language. I need,
Yeah,
yeah,
I am not a native of
yeah,
your
your
of
address.
you, right? And so it's the same thing. I as much as I try to, I need another set of eyes as well.
Does the world, do we have an up and coming book from Stephanie Reynolds?
I am. I mean, well, you do. So, I'm working on a couple of books actually. And so I'm excited. I'm hoping that they will be out by the end of this year.
Can we get a teaser? Just a little bit, maybe, kind of, maybe, possibly what it could be about. Maybe a little bit.
Sure. So the one that I am working on at this moment, the first one, it's called the Noah Mandate, and it's about living a life of extreme faith and complete obedience.
I don't want to read
And
that one.
I know.
That's one of your books I'm not gonna read.
I know, right? I know. I
Because
get on
this is
my
why I
own
said
nerves.
that. For those of you like, why wouldn't you read her book?
Mm.
Once you read and you have the information, you're accountable for what you know. That's
It's
why I always
true.
tell people, you go to school, you're gonna learn something, they're gonna be accountable for what you know. So I'm not reading that book because then I'm gonna have to be obedient to something. So I'll just read maximizing your my Monday again, and I'll read my butterfly effect. What
The
was it? The
wingless
wingless
butterfly.
butterfly. I'm like, butterfly
Yeah.
effect is so wrong. That is not right. Wingless,
That
and
was
it's on
the
my
radio
bookshelf.
show that I was working on when we met. The
Yes,
butterfly
yes.
effect.
We
Hmm.
met when Stephanie and I met. She was becoming an author. Like when I tell you, our friendship has literally been um, just a string of obedient acts just
Hmm.
connected together. I had no idea that she wanted to be an author. She had no idea I wanted to be an author, but life just kind of worked out. And let me say this too. When Glenn was looking for someone, I immediately knew that Stephanie was the person. And I want to stop and interject in the interview for this moment. Know who your friends are, right?
Hmm.
You cannot be afraid to put your friends in a position that you're not qualified for.
Hmm.
I could have very easily been like, oh, Glenn, I could do it, right? Because I had the established relationship, but I know it's not my skill set.
Right.
Stephanie has skills. And I celebrate my friends and I want them to excel and to be great. And because 220 at the time was my publishing company and Glenn was my friend, I wanted to hook up my friend and my publishing company with somebody great, right?
Hmm.
And so, just as that's a passion of mine, of people like having good friends,
Hmm.
is that you want to be able to know when you can put, I want to have all the skilled people in the world connected to me, so that way when opportunities open up and connect, I'm like, oh, I have somebody for that. What you need? Oh, I know somebody for that. And so if you don't have friends in your life that will put you on, as they say, then you need to reevaluate your friend group. I just want to interject that little PSA.
But also, as a testament to you, though, Jay, is also the importance of knowing who you are, right? Because when I know who I am, I also know what I'm not. And
Yes,
so the problem
yes.
is a lot of times we're trying to be what we're not instead of really maximizing who we are. And so it was a testament even for you or to you, in that it was like, okay, I'm going to be truthful. Like, this is not my thing. And I'm okay enough in myself to be able to say that and I not feel any way about it.
Yeah, like I don't, we have never been in competition. And
Mm-mm.
I think because we've never been in competition, we've always complimented each other
Mhm.
so well. Whether
Yeah.
we were working in youth ministry together or once you started your ministry and you said, Jay, can you come on and speak on this? Or if I
Mhm.
was doing something, I'm like, hey, Steph, I need somebody that can do this. Like we will always have been able to, and not just our friendship with each other, but all of our, our friend groups.
Mhm.
We have the lovely Miss Townsend, who's a playwright and an actress.
Mhm.
End up being able to just know who to call and know who to put in
Mhm.
position. And so, thank you for that. But it's just because I'm surrounded around dope people. Like I just have great people around me. And so I don't have to be the greatest person in the room because we're all
Mhm.
great. I think that's
Yes.
one of the things that I love about the Destiny Child children, the Destiny children, that when they talk about each other, they
Mhm.
always celebrate each other and
Yeah.
they never allow media or anybody else to drive a wedge in between them because they think one person's getting more light versus another. They're like, no, we're all light.
Right.
Kelly Rowland said it. No, we're all light. Like,
Yeah.
you may prefer this light versus that light, but at the end of the day, we're all light. And I think that
Yeah.
that's important to be able
Yeah.
to know that we're all light.
We're all like,
I may be a laser, you may be a spotlight,
yeah. And
whatever the
each
case.
light has its own specialty, right?
That's right.
A spotlight would not be as effective if I took it to where I needed a flashlight or where I needed a laser pointer. Like, imagine trying to do a presentation with a big old spotlight, right?
A moving spotlight, that's
Right, a
me.
moving spot, right. That's like having all the colors, you right, like very, and I think that's the key. Like, that's the thing, is recognizing that everybody has their place, and every place that you're assigned to is a place that only you can fulfill. And
Yes.
so work on trying to be the very best laser pointer you can be,
That's all
as
right.
opposed to,
That's right.
being jealous because you're not something else.
Jealousy is such a wasted energy. It's
Mhm.
such a wasted emotion, if you want to call it that, when there's literally room for all of us.
It's room for all of us.
It's room for all of us.
Yeah.
Speaking of rooms,
Yes.
uh, what's coming up with 220? What should we expect? This podcast, like what? 220 got a podcast?
I
Tell
know,
us what
right?
220 doing.
We're
Tell us their business. What's the
we're
tea?
doing things. We're
What's
doing
the tea?
things. Well, I think well, I know both of our hearts with 220 Publishing is to, and I keep using this word, but I guess it's just
It's your
the
word.
word, is my word,
It's your word.
is to really maximize it, right? To really help people level up in every area of their lives. I think that there's so much opportunity for us to expand beyond just publishing books. I think that's just the beginning. That's just the foundation. And so now we are building on that foundation. And over the next few months, I was saying years, but over the next, I mean, ultimately over the next few years, because we do believe that this is
Yeah,
going to be a
it's gonna keep going.
longevity
Absolutely.
endeavor. But over the next few months, just seeing us begin to really expand out beyond just the publishing and going more into branding and personal. It's a one-stop shop, right? A all-inclusive, come and get everything that you need here so that you can really optimize your story and also just love your story. We talked about that with you, and that really resonated, is that love your story. And when you love your story and you embrace your story becomes extremely powerful.
Yeah,
And you learn how to utilize your story in a very effective and intentional way. And so that's what 220 is going to be doing. We're going to be expanding the podcast, doing some live things, the Love Your Story tour. I think the sky is the limit. And we have some amazing authors. And the authors are not just authors. They're speakers, they're coaches, they're businessmen and women, they're professionals, they're all of these things that really go beyond just being an author. And I think we will begin to really
that's right.
capitalize on that rather,
Yeah.
to do some exciting things.
Yeah. And I think that that's what we want you ultimately to know from 220. As a publishing company, from this podcast, from your interaction with us, is that your story matters, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to be only an author,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you don't only have to be a wife or a mom.
Yeah.
Like, I believe, honestly, one of the hardest questions I think that I have to answer on a regular basis is when people ask me, "What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
What day is it?"
Right.
Right,
I know, right?
what time is it? I
Right.
do a lot of stuff,
Right.
and it's hard to say, but I literally believe that, no, I'll say it differently. I know I'm living the life that I've always dreamed of living, no matter how chaotic it can get.
Mm-hmm.
Before we started this podcast, I was like, you know,
Yeah.
tired, but just being where I'm supposed to be gives me energy and gives me light, and being around people who are also pursuing that, because it's
Mhm.
not about having it figured out. As Stephanie, you mentioned earlier, it's about knowing who to connect to. Like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't know how to put a period. All I know are commas. So then you
Yeah.
find somebody who helps you to complete those seasons of your life so you can move on to the next space and time. So Stephanie, I adore you, and you know that,
Oh.
but I do. I don't think I say it enough. And you are such a special person, not only to my life, but you're such a special and necessary part of 220, because you have not only the professionalism and the eye for detail, but you have the heart. And I really believe that you are what we need in order to level up, not only as a company, but to help other people see, because you had a mothering spirit before you were a mother, which I think is so cool about you. You've always been very nurturing. You have the ability to see people, um, no matter what they're telling you. Oh, I'm great. Everything is fine. You're like, no, but how are you? For real. You will not let up until you're honest, people. So let me just tell you that. Um, but I thank you for that. I thank you for that commitment to people, to their purpose, to their assignment, and to their story, because you are the mirror that helps people see what value they have in every situation. And that's not something that everybody has, and that's not something that everybody operates in just so boldly. I'll tell you guys a funny story. And it's just, I'm not even going to the story, but Stephanie is my faith friend. And I, and I say that because Stephanie and I was never able to get in trouble together.
No. Mm-mm.
We tried a few times. We really
It
tried to
never
find the
worked.
trouble.
It never.
We went to the hottest party that was supposed to be like the greatest party ever, right? It was the worst party I've ever been to in my life. And it wasn't because
Yeah.
Stephanie was there. It wasn't that.
Kind of. It
It wa
kind of
but
was.
kind of, right?
Kind of. Yeah.
Because that's not our purpose. And whenever Stephanie and I get together to do work, to do ministry, to do work, to empowerment, whatever, anything productive,
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
blast.
Yes. It's
But
it's so true. Anything outside of it though, it is
oh my
just
God,
such
like
a disappointment.
it is like to the point where we look
Yeah.
at each other like, what are we doing?
I
Like,
know. At
is it
some
you?
point
Is
you
it
just
me?
stopped inviting me. And I understood. I wasn't offended. It was okay.
But
Like I
and
got
then
it.
you know what started happening? Then I just
Yeah.
stopped going.
Right.
Oh, but
I get it.
I love that, because knowing what you and this is a testament to you of knowing who you are and always being who you are, held me accountable to who I am and who I was supposed to be and where I wasn't supposed to be, because clearly that party was not the hottest party of.
That's so funny.
So, do you have any closing remarks for the people?
Think my closing with Mark would be one, thanks, Jamie. No, I appreciate just I appreciate your love for me. I really do. I am you are truly one of my just like real friends. One of the ones that you kind of protect and
Yeah,
that our relationship is very, very important to
yeah,
me. We don't have to talk every day, but I know at the end of the day, you have my back. I have your back. And so I'm very appreciative and I'm very grateful that we get to grow this
yeah,
together
yeah,
and be a part of this together. So I want to thank you and thank Glenn for entrusting me with his baby.
yeah,
I mean, it, for him to even consider, saying, hey, basically throwing it in our laps and saying, go for it.
yeah.
So I'm grateful to him. And I think for anyone listening, my parting words would be just to maximize your Monday,
I know.
maximize your
Yeah,
moments to really figure out who it is you're supposed to be, why you're here, and focus on that and block everything else out because nothing else matters but just you trying to be the most authentic, the most purposeful, the most effective, productive version of yourself and to value you, value who God has created you to be, whether it's in the front, whether it's in the back, whether you're the one that everybody knows or the one that no one knows. Like whatever it is, wherever you are in this season in your life, find a place of value for it. Because when you value it, you're going to get from it what that moment has for you. And you're going to be better and you're going to get closer to your end goal as a result.
Amen to that. I think that is just a perfect setup for what is to come, not just for 220, but to all of our listeners. We truly want you to believe from the bottom of our hearts. We mean this deeply. We believe in you.
Yeah.
Even you. We don't have to know your name. We don't have to know your face. We don't have to know all of your story, but know that we believe in you. And the reason that we can say that so confidently is because you were made in purpose, on purpose, for purpose, by purpose.
Yeah.
Everything that Stephanie and I are doing is to create the room and the space for you to come and figure it out. We don't
Mhm.
expect you to, whether it's about writing a book or whether it's about just figuring out what your brand is. 220 Publishing and this show, Level Up, is about coming together from all walks of life to figure it out. You could turn on the news right now and know that tomorrow was not promised. You
Yeah.
can turn it on right now. And from that reality, we want you to be able to leave here from this show and be determined to definitely level up. So we want
Yes.
to thank you for listening. We are so
Yes.
excited about next week's guest as well. We're not going to tell you who that is, but we are excited about it. But Stephanie, thank you for just being so raw. Thank you for being unedited, right? And thank you for being so kind because you're just always so kind. I don't think I've ever seen
Oh.
Stephanie mean, like ever. Like even when she's needed to be. I don't think she's ever, you ever been mean to anybody?
Oh, yes, I
Next show, next show.
well,
Next episode. Well, you guys, make sure you like, subscribe, share. If there are some authors out there that you think will be a great person to be on this show, they don't have to be a 220 author. They can
Mhm.
be from another publishing company or just somebody that you think is great and they want
Yeah.
to become an author. Then
Yeah.
send them our way and we'll make sure that they're on so you can see them here sharing their story with you. We love you guys and we can't wait to see you next time. Until then, level up.
Level up.
Level up.